Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's class for year 2, we will go over one question, one ERQ from etiology of abnormal disorders. This is about prevalence rates. Many times students forget that prevalence rates are also a part of etiology. They just focus on explanations for various disorders. So this is quite a neglected question that I want to take up today. This is for the command term discuss. And there is a slight difference in how you answer for various command terms. I've explained that in one of my previous videos, so definitely check out the IBDP playlist in which I've discussed how to answer various type of ERQs. Also, I did a video solving the ERQs for paper October-November paper of 2024. In that also you will see my discussion of how you have to answer differently for different command terms. Now, keeping that in mind, how you can answer a typical discuss question is what I want to discuss with you today. And for that, this we will take as a model answer. So, no doubt, I'm discussing a very specific question on prevalence rates. But this is like to give you an idea of how to answer any discuss question that comes in the paper, be it from abnormal, be it from any other option, or even for paper 1. So, that is the intent of this video. Also want to keep the video brief, not very long, so we already have the model answer. I won't be writing it in front of you as such. As we go over it, I'll keep giving you guidelines. So at any point, if you feel you need to read the model answer more thoroughly to understand it, you can just pause the video and read the answer first and then continue with my guidance. Okay, so how should we answer a discuss ERQ for year 2 in IB psychology? Actually, it's the same policy the way we answer in year 1. That way only we have to answer for year 2. I'm just giving emphasis on year 2 because most students tell me they don't have enough resources available for year 2. So to bring your attention that this is something that's very relevant for your year 2. I'm emphasizing on that. Okay, so if the question is something like discuss prevalence rates. See, in the discuss question, they want you to give your arguments. Anytime students get perplexed by the use of the word arguments. What is an argument? It's just you have to make some points around the topic given. Like if it's prevalence rates, there are so many things you can discuss about prevalence rates. For example, you can keep your entire focus on the difference between point prevalence and period prevalence. Alternatively, you can talk about how prevalence rates can be unequal across cultural groups or gender groups. Or you can talk about how prevalence rates might be underestimated because of problems in the criteria for diagnosing disorders. So see, there are so many lines or viewpoints of thinking about this issue. When it comes to prevalence rates, there are so many different things that you can think about in relation to prevalence rate. Those things that you can think about, they are only called arguments. The points that you can make about prevalence rates, those are known as arguments. In one essay, you cannot cover everything relating to prevalence rates, right? Everything that relates to it, of course, there's too much that relates to it. So when we say you need to define your arguments, we mean you need to make it clear which are the aspects related to prevalence rates that you are going to be discussing about in your essay. This is different from, say, a question that would be on evaluate studies related to prevalence rates. There it would not be very important what points you're trying to make. Of course, you would say that this study is related to this point. But then your entire focus shifts to, is this study good or not? You'd keep doing that in the essay. You keep on highlighting the strengths and weaknesses of the study. In the discuss question, the arguments themselves are more important than the studies. So what you should do for a discuss question is finalize on ideally 2 arguments, I would say. More than that becomes too much to handle, and less than that becomes too deficient. So finalize on 2 points you want to make about prevalence rates, and then keep your focus on describing those points in detail and evaluating them. Not evaluating studies for their own sake, but giving studies that can further these arguments or make these points more clear, and then evaluate those studies to evaluate back the argument which you have given with the help of these studies. So discuss command term means finalize on the arguments or the points that you want to give for a topic, and then keep your focus on those arguments throughout the essay. Whatever you do in the essay, describing studies, evaluating studies, everything with reference to the arguments in relation to those. That has to be your approach. So here the question is prevalence rates, I'll finalize 2 arguments. Like I'll go a little ahead and just explain to you. One argument I'm giving about how prevalence rates differ across genders. That is my one argument, and the other is about, actually this is the broader argument that it differs across gender. Then within that, one argument is about there could be a genetic reason for this difference in prevalence rates, and the other is about there could be socio-cultural reasons for why there is this difference. So my 2 arguments are: one, prevalence rates of depression could differ across genders because of biological genetic factors. Second argument is prevalence rates for depression could differ across genders because of socio-cultural factors. I always keep these arguments in mind no matter what I do in the essay. So that is how we approach or discuss command term. Frankly speaking, to be very honest with you, why I have taken these 2 arguments only not because they are the best or I prefer them the most. As such, there is no best objectively, but not because I prefer them the most, just in view of the studies. Most students learn Kendler et al. And they learn Brown and Harris. I've taught now so many students across so many schools, nationally, internationally, everybody is learning Kendler and Brown and Harris. And then they all will tell me we don't want to learn more studies. We are taking Kendler and Brown and Harris anyways for the etiology part. We want to include the same in prevalence. So how to fit it into prevalence? So that's why I've taken arguments that are related to those. I'm not prescribing that you take this approach to finalize your arguments, but in case that is your priority, that you just want to keep the number of studies you want to learn to the bare minimum possible, then you can take the approach that I have taken. Okay, so this is how I have finalized on arguments. If you are the student who is willing to put a little more effort and you're willing to learn 1 or 2 newer studies, compare the ones you've taken for etiology, then you can take the approach which I mentioned before. You can talk in arguments about how prevalence rates might be over or underestimated, or how, period prevalence is different from point prevalence, or how prevalence rates have not really been revised and researched enough with time. So there is a dearth of data on prevalence rates. You can take those arguments if you're willing to put a little more effort. Next part of the question is they've asked you to give these prevalence rates for 1 or more disorders. Mostly in the discuss type of command term, they give you some flexibility. You can take 1 disorder or more than that. I would recommend 1 disorder. You can take more. Say for example, you want to take 1 argument on OCD, 1 on depression, something like that. Why I suggest 1 is, it's again easier for students, because again the thing of economizing, and I don't want to learn about multiple disorders. For etiology I'm taking depression, so fine. You can go about it that way. Second, more importantly, just keeps the focus of the answer more. That's what I feel like. It stays consistent on 1 disorder only. So it's like easier to contrast on the arguments. I'll give you a simple example. I'm saying that the differences in gender on depression could be because of genetic reasons. Then I'm saying for socio-cultural reasons. So it helps to see a contrast. Why it could be because of genetic, alternatively why it could be because of socio-cultural. If I switch the disorder only, I make it about OCD for socio-cultural, that somewhere the direct comparison link is broken. I feel the essay gets broken over there. But of course, if you can write it well, you can integrate it well, you're free to take it. Okay, so what we are going to do for discuss command term, broadly I have explained to you. Now step by step we will look at the answer. I won't be able to read out the whole answer, it's not in the scope of this video. Some examples I'll keep on highlighting from the answer, and I'll keep on showing you how it is organized and what content is covered. Let's begin. I've defined prevalence first, just for a good opening always for any discuss question. We can begin by defining the key concept that's there. In this case, prevalence rates are the key concept. So what is prevalence, what is point and period prevalence, just that much in the definition, or more than that. We should define for a good opening, but we shouldn't lose focus. The question is not describe prevalence rates, it's discuss. So very quickly we come back to discussion after briefly defining what the concept is. Okay, so any essay, discuss type, you can begin this one. Very important, in the introduction itself, just highlight what you are going to be discussing in the essay. Means just give out that these are the arguments that I am going to make. Because as I have told you already, when it comes to... Okay, so definitely outline in the essay what you are going to discuss. Like we saw, there are so many points you can give. How does the examiner know which points of prevalence you are giving, right? So you need to elaborate and elaborate in the sense, not going to the details in the introduction itself, but just specify to the examiner that these are the arguments that I'm taking. I've already explained to which arguments I've taken, so very quickly I'm going to firstly name the disorder, because they said one or more disorders, so let the examiner know which is the disorder that I am discussing, depression. And then I have defined depression also in a line, as you can see here, because again, just like prevalence, to show my understanding, I gave a definition. So just for good practice, one line on what is depression, and then made it clear to the examiner that the argument is going to be about, is it depression is differing across the genders, like it's twice as common in women than in men, because of biological vulnerability, genetic issues, or because of the socially disadvantaged position of women, sociocultural reasons. What I told you before, that only I have jotted down here. So these first two paragraphs are the intro. If it is somehow disturbing to you that there are two paragraphs in the intro and you would like to maintain one, you can merge both the paragraphs. It's just that while writing, I break the paragraphs whenever I'm taking something new to present, that way. But writing style wise, if you want to combine the two also, of course, there is no issue with that. So more or less how I have segregated the paragraphs is, first just has the key definitions, key terms, like your teachers must also be telling you define the key terms. So prevalence and depression I have defined in the first paragraph. In the next, I have pointed out to the examiner that these are going to be my arguments. Before pointing out the arguments, I have just mentioned also that how the prevalence rates are differing, like twice more common in women. So just like why these arguments are important, I have just brought about somewhere, like why I've taken these arguments only, or what is the significance, that I've just indicated very briefly in 1-2 lines, and then I've said these are my arguments. So this is how you can begin a discuss question. Like this all can be involved in your introduction. Now that we have finalized and pointed out to the examiner also that these are the two arguments, we can definitely go ahead and start explaining the arguments. In a discuss question, I know this is repetitive, but to drill the point into you, you need to focus on the arguments. So explain the argument a little more before getting into the studies. At no point it should feel that you're just discussing studies for the sake of it. So the first argument, genetic vulnerability, like I told you, I can't read everything, but just to tell you that I have explained that individuals can inherit genes that can put them at greater risk. And somehow it appears that women, because sex is also inherited, plus they might be having those genes which are setting them vulnerable. So this is one assumption of researchers, that this is the reason why women have greater prevalence of depression, in the sense that because that vulnerability is there by virtue of being a woman and by perhaps having risky genes. When they're exposed to even mild stressors, they might end up developing depression. Now there's a study which shows this, Kendler et al. So I've summarized the study next. If you want, you can pause the video and go over the summary. So in the study summary, typical aim, procedure, results, conclusion. They wanted to look at concordance rates, and then they used interviews to diagnose the patients, and these are the concordance rates which they found. And all concordance rates, regardless of which type of twins they were greater in the case of women than men in the results. These things I have explained in the summary. So I've explained my first argument, given a study in support of that, kept the summary of the study very brief because focus is on the argument. So not to take away from that, summary as is relevant and as brief as possible. Then the evaluation of the study and linking it back to the argument made. I have evaluated the study to show some merits and demerits of the argument. For example, if we look at Kendler et al., very large sample has been used, like more than 15,000 participants. Now many times your teachers will tell you, related to this only, I'm sorry if I'm drifting a little, but teachers will tell you don't give generalizability or ethics. They are considered weaker points. Even I believe in that. But if you can give it in a way that strengthens the argument, definitely you can give it. In Kendler's case, the very large sample, almost a population size sample, is such a big strength that I couldn't ignore it. So when it comes to strength of the study is that there was a very large sample which increases the reliability of findings, supporting the argument or strengthening the argument that definitely genetic similarity plays a role in depression. So the argument is telling us that biological determination is very high. That is why women are more likely to suffer from depression. So the fact that this is something found with such a large sample is giving very good strength to that argument. That is what I wanted to bring about through this strength. Always, as I have mentioned in other videos, when you are evaluating any critical thinking you're showing for studies or for the argument at large, keep the number of points less, keep the breadth short, keep the depth more. So don't just go on naming. That's the biggest mistake. Big sample, generalizability. Telephone interviews according to DSM, credibility, validity. Concordance rates, quantitative data, objective. The examiner doesn't want to see a list of strengths and weaknesses. They want to see your understanding of strengths and weaknesses. So this is a strength, large sample size is a strength. Expand on that, contextualize. Why is it a strength? How is it a strength? Explain that, move to the limitation. Don't go on mindlessly listing strengths and weaknesses, okay? So you can see that is what I've done here. I know a number of strengths and weaknesses. That's not what I want to show the examiner. Let's see, I can give so many strengths. And this is a strength. This is the most relevant strength because it helps to give credibility to my argument. But there is a limitation which weakens the argument. So select always what is the most prominent strength and weakness in light of the argument you're giving and give that. That is known as a focused, organized, clear essay. Like when you see the marking rubric, they tell you they want organization and clarity. Separate marks are reserved for that. This is known as organization and clarity. So limitation is that the study is just correlational. The whole argument is about women must be having depression because of biological vulnerability more than men. But then the study has not been able to rule out that environment also plays a role. So that weakens the argument because maybe it's still environmental factors only that are creating the difference. So that is what I have elaborated on further. You can just read through it. I have given one more argument to do with sociocultural risks. Like it could be also because of exposure to experiences is different for males and females. That's why females might be having a greater depression. So now to expand on that argument further. In the sense, the same structure that I've given for the first argument, I'm going to follow you. First argument, supporting study, evaluation of the study in light of the argument. So same thing. Second argument, second study, evaluation of the study in light of the argument. So once you get the hang of, how to write the discuss question, you can keep on writing it that way. So sociocultural factors can also play a role in depression. Some examples I've given to expand on the argument, like when it comes to women, gender roles are different. They are expected to have a focus on the family, sacrifice their career for that. So roles are different. Position in society is inferior. Poverty, women have to face more because they don't earn enough. They don't have enough opportunities like men. And there are great adversities in their life due to their inferior status in society. So these might be the reasons why women are suffering from depression. Not just jumping into the study. First, explaining in general the argument, these could be some possibilities why women are more depressed, and then coming to the specific study by Brown and Harris. So always keep that in mind. Again, I've summarized Brown and Harris, aim, procedure, results, conclusion. They wanted to show how women, especially women from working class with lot of responsibilities, are more likely to be depressed. In the results, they found indeed that is the case, and they give numerous reasons, such as feeling a lack of emotional support, not having protective factors like support from a parent. Those were the reasons why they were more depressed. So again, you can just pause and read the summary if you need to. Now coming to, for this study, one strength is there was emphasis on the context of the study. Like they have taken into account so many socio-cultural factors, so it's definitely more realistic. You can contrast with Kendler et al. That was very focused on genes. It was realistic, but in the sense real environmental factors were not considered, whereas here they have been considered. Overall also, in isolation of Kendler also, it's a very realistic study because actually they have interviewed women and they found out about their real problems. These are not stimulated problems in the laboratory. So that means the argument that we are making, because of socio-cultural factors, women might be more depressed. It has a lot of relevance to their everyday living. But in terms of a weakness, this study was done way back in the 70s. So though it was realistic for its time, today gender roles have changed a lot. Sorry, not a lot, but they have changed, and women are increasingly becoming independent, not as dependent on men as before. So relatively, at least, women are having a better position in many societies today. So the argument might have been true for its time, but today maybe socio-cultural factors are not the only or the most important reason for why women are more depressed than men. There can be other reasons also. So again, I have evaluated this study in light of the argument. Let's just quickly summarize what we've seen so far in terms of structure, how to answer a discuss question. We gave an introduction first. in which we defined the key concepts and we highlighted the outline for the essay, like which arguments we are making in the essay. Then we gave the first argument, we gave a study in support of it, because as the marking scheme wants us to give supporting evidence, evaluate the evidence and all, critical thinking, everything we are doing. So study, then we have given evaluation of the study, then a second argument, then a study, then the evaluation of the study, always linking back to the original argument. So this is the structure we have followed so far. Next thing you need to do in a discuss question is, you need to evaluate the issue at large, prevalence rates at large, because after all the question is not just about evaluating the studies or some aspects of prevalence, it's about discussing prevalence as a whole. So what are the merits and demerits of studying prevalence is something also we need to discuss independent of the studies. We can take examples of the studies in it because we have elaborated on the studies, but otherwise also you need to talk about that. Before that though, I have done one thing because it's relevant to this answer, it won't be relevant every time. See, we took two views, one was the Kendler's genetic view and the second was Brown and Harris's sociocultural views. They are not the opposite of each other, they are actually not contradicting or contrasting each other, they can be reconciled in the diathesis stress model. So here I've just tried to explain how both might be true. Kendler and the biological genetic argument might be showing the diathesis risk factor part of depression, and the other one might be showing the stress factor, like Brown and Harris sociocultural is showing the environmental factors. So taken together, if we take genetic vulnerability and environment together, both adversities from both sides might be creating depression in women. As I told you, it's relevant to this essay, so I have put it here. In every essay you won't have to do. This is only for those essays where arguments can be reconciled, you can have a paragraph like this. Coming to, as I was telling you, a general discussion on prevalence rates. General critical thinking about prevalence rates as a whole beyond the studies. One strength of looking at prevalence rates is we can bring about some intervention, like women need support. So if we know why they are suffering more from depression, no matter whether genetic proves to be the real reason, sociocultural or both, we can have some interventions that can hopefully prevent depression in them, and if not, treat depression. So something like community-based mental health programs, some large-scale community interventions I've given as an example. Weaknesses are also there. Prevalence rates can be biased, like when we are saying that women have more depression than men. Is it really the case, or is it that men are just underreporting depression because of stigma? So can we trust prevalence rates at all? That is one issue, one weakness. So this paragraph is just critical thinking of prevalence rates as a whole. So that also needs to be included in a discussion question. And finally, there can be a conclusion. In conclusion, we summarize the arguments that we have made. The first argument which we made, it's just a repetition in the sense, a summary of it, and then what is shown by Kendler et al., what's shown by Brown and Harris, and then what each study had to offer in terms of the arguments being made. Like how strength-wise they give strong empirical support, but a weakness-wise they both have been reductionist. Incomplete by themselves, a reconciled view is better. And finally, in a conclusion, besides summary, we can always suggest something for further research. So a more holistic approach in future, which can reconcile both the sides, and not only that, look at other possible factors also, like whether prevalence rates are true as a whole or not, or they are being biased in some way. That type of a study, the research in that area can help further understanding of prevalence rates. Just to summarize whatever we have seen in this video, I'll just give you one outline again for discuss answers. For discuss answers, first give an introduction, define the key concepts, outline what arguments you're going to make in the essay. Then for each argument, elaborate on the argument independent of the study first. Generally, what is that argument? Explain that. Then give a study, summarize the study. Don't unnecessarily elaborate on the study. Studies are not useful for their own sake. They are useful for supporting the argument. After summarizing the study briefly, evaluate the study in depth rather than breadth. So select some relevant strength and weakness of the study, preferably one strength, one weakness, to show balanced critical thinking. Link back each strength and weakness to the argument that you have made. Repeat the same thing for the second argument. Then give one critical discussion paragraph overall of prevalence rates as a concept, one strength and one weakness of the concept itself. and then just conclude off by summarizing whatever you have given in the answer and considering the weaknesses in what has been understood about these arguments so far. What future research can do, you can make a suggestion on that. So this is how you can give a discuss answer. Now if you want, you can quit the video here. I would just like to discuss something further about what resources I have available for your IBDP. So if you're interested in tuition resources, you can continue watching this video, otherwise you can stop it here. Firstly, previously in my other videos also I have explained to you how to answer discuss type of questions. So those resources are available for free. You can watch them. Similarly, how to write discuss questions with other examples I have explained. So that will also be helpful to you if you have liked this video. Secondly, if you want even more model answers, like I know many of you are short on time, you're looking out for ready answers, but the quality of answers available are not always good. And textbooks generally don't have complete answers. So in case you want ready answers, of course not to memorize and imitate them, but just to get an idea of how to write your answers, I am making an essay pack available. This answer plus model answers for other topics in etiology, because this is the most popular one. I have prepared keeping in mind the most popular studies that are taken with the help of those, like most probably which studies your school is taking. According to that, I've made model answers. You can purchase them from my website. I'm including the details and link in the description box and pin comment. Otherwise, also you can subscribe to my channel. Whenever I make such resources available, I keep updating about them on the channel. So ready essay packs are available for purchase. In those essay packs, not only other topics I have taken as questions, but other command terms also. So in the essay pack for etiology, for example, what if they're giving you evaluate the studies type of question? What if they're giving you discuss ethical considerations? What if they're asking you to contrast two etiologies? So just like I've explained to you for discuss command term, for evaluate ethical issues, contrast, there are some other requirements, how to write the answer according to those requirements. I've written model answers and I'm presenting to you. So you can access that essay pack for very affordable rates and you can buy them. Also, if you're looking for one-to-one classes, or if you want me to evaluate your answers, give you feedback, any correspondence help that you need for your IB psychology, or for IA or EE in psychology, if you need help, definitely you can contact me. My contact number and email ID is available in the description box and pinned comment below. Okay, so that is all that I have to offer for today, and I will try to make a similar video for treatment in abnormal soon, and even for other like psychology of relationships. I don't think I've covered enough right now, and health psychology. So I will try to make videos on those soon as well. If you have any particular recommendations or suggestions which videos I should be making, you can let me know in the comments box below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.